Dr. Gonzalez is a fellow of the American College of Nutrition and has authored over 250 scientific publications. He serves as a member of the many scientific editorial boards. He has served as consultant for several companies, where he has been responsible for designing formulations of nutritional supplements and pharmaceutical products. He has also been a consultant for the Center for the Improvement of Human Functioning in Wichita, Kansas, and Centro Médico Regenerativo in Bayamón and Caguas, Puerto Rico. He has obtained several research awards for his work on nutrition, supplementation, and cancer. He's currently director of RENAC-2 project and research director in the InBiomed project initiative. Dr. Gonzalez also served as a nutrition consultant to the Puerto Rico basketball national team and was part of the medical commission of the Puerto Rican Basketball Federation. In December 2013, Dr. Gonzalez was exalted as Distinguished Ponceño in the area of medicine due to his contribution in various areas of non-toxic cancer therapy. In 2015, he was elected as a member of the prestigious Puerto Rican Academy of Arts and Sciences and to the Ibero-American Academy of Cultures and Sciences. Dr. Gonzalez is the founder of InBiomed, leaders in the development of non-toxic chemotherapy treatments for cancer. The findings of their work with intravenous vitamin C as an anti-cancer agent published in 2002 were confirmed by the NIH in 2005. They published the first phase 1 clinical study utilizing intravenous vitamin C for treatment of terminal cancer patients in 2005, and also published in 2005 the most comprehensive review on vitamin C and cancer as a follow-up on the work of two-time Nobel laureate Dr. Linus C. Pauling. He has developed many new concepts in this scientific field, such as the bioenergetic theory of carcinogenesis, the physiological modulation concept, the systemic saturation phenomenon of intravenous vitamin C, the metabolic and mitochondrial correction model for disease treatment and prevention, exosomes, and photobiomodulation in cancer. Dr. Gonzalez was inducted to the International Hall of Fame of Orthomolecular Medicine in April 2016. He is one of the first Latino and Puerto Rican to be given this distinction. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Gonzalez.
Thank you, Wendy. I'm gonna have to make some miracles here. I have a couple of friends that are good at miracles. Maybe you know some of them: Jesus, Buddha, Mahoma, Tesla. So they're pretty good at doing miracles. There are a couple here: Alejandro Pera, I don't know if he's still here. Morales Borja, they're pretty good at doing miracles too. And Dr. Derek Da Silva too. But the thing is that the first miracle I have to do today, it's try to wake you up after lunch. That's gonna be a problem, but I'm gonna try to reach out the ether, all the energy of the ether, and try to impose it to you now. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do that, but we'll see. Let me grab some of the ether and roll it back. I managed the slides from here. Let's see. Not quite. Well, maybe I do. I don't know. Okay. I'm going to try to talk a little bit about mitochondrial correction as a therapy against degenerative disease and aging. There have been excellent talks on precision medicine, functional medicine that were given by the previous speakers. But I'm going to go back to the basics, back to the mitochondria. I don't know if you are aware that mitochondria, it's feminine. We inherit mitochondria from our mother, because most of the mitochondria in the sperm, it's in the tail, and the tail is lost in fertilization. So in that sense, it's mitochondria is a female. That's why it's so powerful, but at the same time, it's so sensitive. And she likes to be loved and been taken care of. So we're going to be talking about that. There she is. She's pretty. Don't you think so? I have my own mitochondria down there. She's at that corner. Now, mitochondria actually was a bacteria that decided to marry the cell and live mutualistically, synergistically, happily ever after. Mitochondria provides the energy for the cell, and that permits the evolution of multicellular complex organisms. But the mitochondria is more than that. The first doctoral degree that I did was in natural medicine, and most of my professors were Chinese. And the topic of energy, mitochondria, and all these things have a connotation, a very mystical type of connotation, and it's related to all the energy levels that are present in this universe. And I think one of the important things about mitochondria is I think it has a conscious. And it's, you know, that biology, we have seen a lot of measurements of things, genetic things, different parameters in blood, and those are very important things. But we have to remember that those are a measure in a precise point of time. And biology, it's really a quantum field. It's a field of possibilities, all going on at the same time. The thing is that sometimes we don't remember that basically we're here in a physical dimensional state, that we're only aware of only 5% of what reality really is. But reality, it's 95% more stuff that we don't see. And in that sense, most of that reality is dark matter, dark energy, everything dark. So welcome to the dark side. But in seriousness, the energy of the mitochondria, it's a very profound thing. And we just think about it in terms of ATP, in terms of energy usage of the cell, but it goes beyond that. It's a total universal communication. It's a communication between the sun, our pineal gland, that distributes all these wavelengths to our body, that canalize these electrons to our foot when we do the grounding. So it's a total communication, non-local communication. And that's a characteristic of quantum physics, the quantum mechanics. I think I took some fungi or something with the lunch, so let me go on. The mitochondria has different compartments. I think the most important thing, I'm not going to go in details on stuff, I'm just going to say what is important. And basically is that you see those inner and outer membranes. Those are very important because that's where the Krebs cycle and the electron transport system go on. The Krebs cycle, it's kind of more dimensional physical, but the electron transport system has all the connotations of electrical, energetic. You have the influence of oxygen, you have the influence of different chromophores like cytochrome B, cytochrome C, coenzyme Q10, which was mentioned previously. And it's very important, that inner membrane, because that's where the electron transfer system takes place. And it's very important because it depends much on electrical and this type of electrical dependency, it's dependent on redox action. So not only it's the electron movement of redox action that permits this movement. And we're going to be going more a little bit in detail. But know that that inner membrane is so important because that's where all these different electrical movements go on. We always talk about mitochondria as providing this ATP, which is very important, but it has other functions like maintaining glutathione levels, which is a very important antioxidative component in the body, protects DNA, it signals cell reproduction, activates cell apoptosis, maintains the cell electrochemical integrity. And that's one of the important parts, because if that's not possible, you will never be able to develop the necessary energy to keep this complex machine going on. And there's a relationship between the mitochondria and the chloroplast. They're cousins. And it's really one dependent to another. And I think it's a symbol of balance, but I also think it's a symbol that we have to return back to nature in many of the things that we do. Although we're using a lot of as you've seen in these earlier lectures, technology, which is good, but it's technology in favor of balancing the body. So that's very important. I think Dr. Da Silva mentioned that too. That's related to the conversion of energy. The mitochondria converts chemical energy to reduce carbon compounds into ATP. The chloroplast converts light energy into energy of the reduced carbon compounds. So it's a real close relationship. It's fundamental to both processes, the electron transport chain, the electron transport system. And I think an important part of this is that vitamin C, all these components that we talked about and mentioned earlier, are very important components in many physical dimensions of this activity of energy production. Many of these cofactors are part of the enzymes, are necessary for the enzyme function. Other cofactors are just chromophores that absorb wavelengths and pushes these electrons forward. So we need all these type of movements going on at the same time to develop the necessary energy. And that's the things that the mitochondria has to be taking care of and making decisions. The important thing here is the mitochondria only has 37 genes. Excuse me. And they codify, basically, they code for the electron transport system proteins. The rest of the things they have to ask about the nucleus for it. So that's how important is the communication between the nucleus, this gene regulation, this gene modification, this epigenetic thing. It's very important, a communication between the mitochondria and the nucleus. Those are the 37 genes. I could skip that. Energy is all, being multicellular complex organisms, we have many pathways, many enzymes, many cofactors, and energy is necessary for order, organization, compartmentalization, and proper communication. In most of disease, I remember my Chinese professors used to say that there is no disease. There is only a problem of balance and communication. There's the famous electron transport system. And the movement goes this way. You have certain components like vitamin C that provide a couple of electrons to move on into this. It's accepted by the first acceptor of electrons, the coenzyme Q10. Excuse me. This passes along the cytochrome B, cytochrome C. And at the end, you have oxygen working as a vacuum, absorbing all these things. And you also have a proton pump pushing the electrons forward. So you have all these mechanical things, electrical things going on at the same time. And that's what really produces this electron movement. Life is movement, so it has to be, everything has to be moving. That's the principle of these older cultures, these older cultures that were very much interested in curing and making a difference. They all use energy as part of their of their way of treating certain conditions or reassuring or making that these systems have balance again. And the point here is that for this, you need everything to be corrected, everything to be going on at the same time with the same intensity and that kind of thing. We're going to talk about couple things in detail that are going to help this particular aspect of the mitochondria, where you have the combination of a physical dimension and a combination of a quantum dimension. Those are biochemical pathways. As you could see how complicated it could be, and more if I tell you that everything goes on at the same time. So it's crazy, but it needs order, organization, and good communication. Here's just talking about the electromotive force of the electron movement and the electron transport system. And it's an oxidation reduction. It's a constant movement. If anything stops at that level of the mitochondria, you're going to have free radical formation and you're going to have damage to the membranes. And that's why the principle in Chinese medicine is to move the qi, move the energy. If the energy becomes stagnant, you get disease. And it's the same, you see the same principles at this level of energy production. There are many mitochondrial disorders, some identified well, some not so well, but what we have seen is that we can consider most degenerative diseases as mitochondriopathies, because in degenerative diseases, mitochondria is not functioning well, it's not functioning optimally. In chronic degenerative disease, you have problems not only with function, but also structure. And it's a slow, progressive deterioration. And it's a major cause of morbidity and death. And these diseases are basically in 4 groups: cardiovascular, neoplastic, structural, and disease of the nervous system. And all of them present loss of energy and loss of communication. When you compare mitochondria from old rats to those of young rats, you see there's lower content of the protein cardiolipin, there's lower membrane potential, there's lower oxygen utilization, and then an increase in oxygen leakage. And all this leads to mitochondrial dysfunction. This is a very interesting slide. In the first one, in the first picture, you see normal liver mitochondria. You can see them, their complete structure. The second one, it's a epitoma, but it's a slow-growing, well-differentiated. And you see some complete mitochondria. But when you see an undifferentiated epitoma, fast-growing, you basically don't see any mitochondria. What you see is what it's called ghost mitochondria, which are, the structure is empty. No inner membranes, no Krebs cycle, no electron transport system. So you have a functional, total of functional mitochondria, dysfunctional. So we need to increase the mito power. I think that's one of the most important things, not only for degenerative disease, but if we want to reach an anti-aging status, we need to increase mito power. We could call it mitochondrial correction, optimization, improvement, rescue, repair, renewal, recovery, restoration. You call it whatever you want, but we have to do it. All these different energy medicines, vibrational medicines, Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, botanical medicines, subtle energies, Reiki, hands-on healing, all kind of have the mitochondria involved. Interesting, in these type of subtle energies, you have coupled and uncoupled mitochondria. The coupled mitochondria are the ones producing ATP, and the coupled are the ones producing heat. And you're probably going to need both in order to canalize the healing action of energy. So we embarked ourselves in a project called RECNAC2, which is cancer written backwards. ideas to revert cancer by non-toxic means, but we figured out that this could help fight aging. This could help fight other degenerative diseases. So we started out with a couple things like diet, water, oxygen, different cofactors like CoQ10, lipoic acid, acetyl-L-carnitine, ascorbate, phospholipids, magnesium. And these are the things that we probably haven't mentioned today that might be important. I think Dr. Morales Borja will talk a little bit about HBOT, hyperbaric oxygen therapy, the IV lasers, infrared sauna, exosome, peptides, and stem cells. I think these are very important complementary therapies to help increase mitochondrial function or restore mitochondrial function. Diet. What we have seen is that most of the time, we have this biochemical individuality that has been kind of discussed early this morning with these different genetic tests, which is very important because everybody's different. But in general, we have observed that a low-carb diet, especially low in refined, processed carbs or food in general, it's very important in order to restore mitochondrial function. Ashley mentioned Cherry Walls, which recovered herself from multiple sclerosis, and she did a Paleolithic diet, and it really helped her restore mitochondrial function and overcome multiple sclerosis. The keto diet, it's another thing that we've been looking at. We have used it in very fast-growing cancers with certain effectiveness, but after a while, the body kind of gets used to it, and we have to give it another shock. Intermittent fasting, it's another thing that I think has helped a lot restore mitochondrial function, increase mitochondrial function. I was losing energy a lot, and I started intermittent fasting, and I think it has helped me a lot increase my energy levels again. The problem is with my knee. My knee is busted, so I can't do all the crazy stuff that I want to do because I have the energy, but I don't have the knee. Mitochondria, basically, when we talk about low carb, it's better designed to use fat than to use carbohydrates because carbohydrates sometimes gets stagnant in the electron transport system, and that creates free radicals. Like for fat, for example, does not. It just goes through. So generating ATP via fats and ketones produces fewer free radicals. And once you do intermittent fasting, what you have is your mitochondria is not overburdened. And basically the paleo diet, it's basically vegetables, fruit, low glycemic index fruits, nuts, and eggs. When you do this type of low carbohydrate diet, you might increase urinary ketones, but not to the level that will produce a metabolic problem. And these are produced from metabolizing acetyl-CoA by beta oxidation of fats. And it occurs when carbohydrate-derived pyruvate is low. And all enzymes present are able to convert ketones to fuel, but in the erythrocyte, cornea, lens, and retina, those need a little bit of glucose. There have been benefits of the ketogenic diet in general, used for, I would say, medium term. It reduces inflammation, improve fat burning, increase mental clarity and sharpness, energy abundance, clear skin, reduce cravings, mitochondrial biogenesis, anti-aging effects in general, and reduce risk of chronic disease. But the point here is that you have to know how to pick your fats, and they have to be a kind of, for example, olive oil, avocado oil, but it has to be extra virgin because those are the ones that have no oxidation. And that's very important. In order, if you want to really obtain good energy from these fats, has to be kind of clean fats. And most of the fats that we see in the supermarket are refined. So we want them to be unrefined. Another fats that are used, it's coconut oil. Coconut oil is kind of interesting because it's a saturated fat, but it's very high in medium chain triglycerides. So those can be used directly for energy. They don't have to go to that more complicated digestion of fats to the lymphatic system. This is the method that I use. There are various methods, but this is kind of, for me, the most easier to do. It's the 16-8, which I eat at night, and I count 16 hours, and after 16 hours, I eat breakfast, whatever time it is. There are some components that are very important for the mitochondria. One of them are the proteanthocyanidins, and those have a reduction power. They're present in red wine. Luis is going to be happy about this. Dark chocolate also has a high content, but remember, it has to be very low in sugar. Water. This is a very very hard topic, I would say, in the sense that the water that we're really referring, it's the physiological water, which is really what it's called structured water, or the fourth phase of water. It's the one that contains what it's called the EC zone, the exclusion zone. And it's really where you have these components that realign together and form some sort of combination that permits an electron flow to the structure of water. It's kind of H3O instead of H2O. And the question is, how do we really structure water? So we structure water putting it at sunlight, with the wavelengths of sunlight that will structure water. And I don't know if you know the story about Juan Ponce León that was looking for the fountain of youth. So he went to Florida, and he found it because it was a streaming water at the sun in movement, but he got killed before he kind of got any advantage of it. The point is that water has a bunch of different capabilities, but I think the thing of being structured, it's the thing that makes water unique in the sense that it could retain information, it could retain energy. That's one of the principles of homeopathy, but that's another talk. But know that water is a component of the extracellular matrix, which really covers the cell membrane. The cell membrane covers the cell and protects the mitochondria. The mitochondrial membrane protects the mitochondria, and that's why the most important components are in these inner membranes. And we have to remember that the body is 70% water. So this fourth phase of water, it's really what is physiological water. They have measured water in cancer cells, and it's less ordered than the corresponding water in healthy cells, because there's a loss of communication, and there's a higher entropy, which is disorder. This was described by Dr. Gerald Pollack. Actually, I wrote a paper recently on structured water and cancer, which was very interesting because I invited Dr. Pollack, and he told me that he has had bad experiences with these type of invitations, so he declined it very gracefully. But it was funny because after the paper came out, he read it and he loved it, and he said he would really want to be part of it because he's been thinking about writing about it, but he never had a chance. So maybe for the second one. There's a conference on structured water in Hungary, which he invited me, but it's too long away, and my knee is too bad. So I had to decline graciously too. Oxygen, I think the most important thing that I wanted you to remember about oxygen is that it could be a double-edged sword, right? But if all the rest of the elements are aligned and are balanced, oxygen is a super advantage. And oxygen, in terms of the electron transport system, it's the vacuum. It's what really absorbs and pushes everything into it, so you have the ATP formation. So it's a very important thing. Other than it increases circulation, so in that way it permits all these different components to reach their different areas that they are needed and form part of that different enzymes. That so all these complex pathways could take care could occur and take care of the balance, which is really the state of health, the real state of health. There's an important difference between oxygenation and oxidation. Oxidation is basically the loss of electron, while oxygenation is the process of diffusing oxygen. So that's very important. And don't forget about the love of oxygen for electrons. That what makes it a great last acceptor in the electron transport chain, and like a vacuum. Many nervous, functional, respiratory, and blood disorders are successfully corrected by restoration of oxygen. That's very important. And sometimes we get a little bit reductionist about how oxygen works. In reality, the body manages really well, and especially when you give it in abundance. Oxygenation and oxidation both have important functions in killing germs, viruses, parasites, reducing cellular division, aiding cellular function. But, you know, as I told you, oxygen is a double-edged sword. If you remember during the COVID pandemic, people, when they reached the hospital, they couldn't breathe well, and they were intubated. And most of the intubated people died, because what it did in that moment, you increased too much oxygen, and what it did is that increased the cytokine storm formation. So the thing is that you had to oxygenate, but you should have do it more lightly. In that sense, hyperbaric oxygen chambers would have saved a lot of life at that point of time. Also by IV vitamin C, but that's another topic. That's coenzyme Q10, ubiquinone. The Q10 refers that it has 10 isoprene units. Those are what stabilizes the molecule at the electron transport system. It permits it to move electrons forward. It's a very important component of the mitochondria. So it's a very important component of heart, which works 24/7, has a lot of mitochondria. The brain has a lot of mitochondria. The liver has a lot of mitochondria, and the kidney. Another important component is lipoic acid. Lipoic acid has the particularity of being soluble in fat and soluble in water. So it kind of combines glycolysis, anhydrous glycolysis, to oxidative phosphorylation. So it unites the mitochondria with the cytoplasm. That's very important component, and it's part of the cofactors of the pyruvate dehydrogenase, which is an enzyme that makes pyruvate go to acetyl-CoA, so that moves forward the Krebs cycle. Acetyl-carnitine was mentioned, you know, as a propulsor of utilizing fat by the mitochondria and using it as energy. So it's a very important component, especially if you're doing a keto diet. Ascorbic acid, it could be 3 days talking about ascorbic acid here, but I think Dr. Ruiz already had a talk for a day about the hormones, so I'm not going to take you more time. He's going to kill me for this. But vitamin C, it's a pleiotropic molecule, meaning that it has so many functions in terms of physiology. And we only think about collagen formation, but it increases energy. It's an ergogenic aid. I have stories about that, but we don't have the time, so let me move on. Phospholipids, there was mention also the different phospholipids, especially from the Garf-Nicholson phospholipids. Garf-Nicholson was the person who proposed the dynamic flow model of the membrane, and he knows membranes very well. And he helped a lot of people with the Gulf War syndrome that had damaged mitochondria and damaged nerve cells, restoring phospholipids. And actually, Dr. Nicholson, it's part of the authors of our article of mitochondrial correction. So we use phospholipids in order to help the membranes of the mitochondria. Magnesium is a very important mineral in the sense that it's involved in more than 300 enzymes, and it has a calming effect. So it becomes a very important component of these energy production things. Also, B complex that was mentioned before, all these enzymes in the Krebs cycle, enzymes in the electron transfer system, use cofactors of the B vitamins to advance. This is the part that I really wanted to concentrate on. I don't know how much time I have left. Wendy's telling me. Okay, I'll hurry up. Hyperactive oxygen, Dr. Morales Borja will talk about that, but it's all these components, all these different mito enhancers that I mentioned here, have a mutualistic, synergistic effect and approach. Remember that the mitochondria, it's quantum. It likes possibilities. So when you add what she likes, she's going to produce a lot of energy. And this oxygen will really increase energy production if all the other components that we talked previously are present. IV lasers, this is a very important concept. It's a new concept. It's a concept of that sometimes you have all these cofactors, but it doesn't work. And you know why it doesn't work? Because you need energy to really impulse all these things. And we call it the Frankenstein effect. For those of you who saw the Frankenstein movie, remember there was a bunch of body parts that went into life when it received that lightning bolt. So we need that lightning bolt in the mitochondria in order for all these things to start. It's like a start, like a startup. And we have seen particularly red and infrared wavelengths to have a very important effect in augmenting ATP production. But we have seen that other components, other IV lasers like blue, yellow, green, have also an effect on the chromophores of the body. And remember that we perceive these as colors, but in reality, these are wavelengths. So these different wavelengths can inside affect these chromophores, and in that sense, stimulate electron movement, stimulate order, organization, and communication. So we don't know still how much time. It could be a very precision thing eventually, but we have no idea about time. We're using it 10 minutes each, but we don't know if that's the optimal, and maybe the optimal could be optimal in different type of conditions. So we're still in learning about this, but we have seen dramatically increases in energy in how people feel. Infrared sauna, it's another physical dimensional type of treatment that you increase this infrared sauna. It feels like a sauna, the heat, the stuff, and you see how pain resides, you see how people get more energetic, and we see it very complementary to the IV lasers and to the hyperbaric oxygen. The rest of the things, it's more informational energy, that once you have everything going on, you might need these informational components to really guide this epigenetic component of increasing anti-aging effect or attaining the healthy state. And these are exosomes, which exosomes are really secretions of the stem cells. Some believe that most of the effect of stem cells are not only by the stem cell per se, but are from their secretions, like the exosomes. These are very important, that these secretions, you understand their level of development or their age or that type of thing. We have seen that umbilical cord stem exosomes have a particular information on cell differentiation that may help against diseases, especially as cancer. Other peptides, we had Edwin talking, I think Edwin left already. I think Luisa is going to talk a little bit about that. But we have different peptides that are also informational molecules that facilitate the body use of different pathways that will enhance well-being in anti-aging. And stem cells, you know more about stem cells, you know that stem cells have their own proper effect in restoring many times tissue and function. So these are components that we're looking at to use them in a mutualistic, synergistic way with mitochondria to enhance its effect. I think Edwin talked about MOT and one of the peptides that help mitochondria. General recommendation, eat organic, eat a wide variety of fruit and vegetables, eat plenty of dark green vegetables, avoid dairy and gluten, exercise daily. That's the Frankenstein effect. These are books that have really helped me kind of put all these things together. Body Electric by Robert Becker, The Fourth Phase of Water by Gerald Pollack, Energy Medicine by James Oshman, Cancer as a Metabolic Disease by my good friend Thomas Seyfried. May the force be with you. And welcome to the dark side. Before I leave, it's important that the greatest obstacle to discovery is not ignorance, it's the illusion of knowledge. We always have to learn. We're always learning. That's the only way science can advance. That's Linus Pauling. He's in my desk right there, so. I would like to dedicate this talk to my advisor, Dr. Hugh D. Riordan. Thank you. Any questions? I could leave. In terms of the doses needed, it's gonna need some precision medicine. As now, we had given a shotgun approach. It's not a great clinical idea, but it's the only thing we've been able to do as now.
Has energy medicine been shown to increase mitochondrial function?
In general, yes, but you were thinking in which one in particular?
Like I saw you had Reiki up there and
Yeah.
a couple other things.
There are not many studies, but there are some studies that show increases in energy in an indirect way by using VO max after a Reiki session and seeing it increase. So there are some. There's not much, but there's some. But you know what? I like evidence-based medicine, but I prefer result-based medicine. Because once you have patients, that's the N of one. And that N of one that you have there, it's the one that you want to respond to your therapies. So I prefer result-based and evidence-based. But if they go hand in hand, hey, welcome. More power to the people. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Michael.